Okay, confirmation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all in live the Madina Institute channel, and ahlan wa sahlan and marhaban bikum to the shurut of imama, or rather the leadership, and getting on with leadership, more specifically so in this trying and testing time, connecting creator within the boundaries of your homes, and taking on the responsibilities and roles of leadership within your homes and in local communities. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursal Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Mawlana Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I greet you all with the greeting of love and peace and mercy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. طبعا, and normally the references to imama really and leadership in the prayers, being it the salah in specific, or other prayers or other ways and means of attaining the pleasure of Allah Jalla Jalal, is more specific, is sort of linked to fiqh, also known as jurisprudence, and simply put, that is the how to worship Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. As you all know, the who you're worshipping is Allah Himself Jalla Jalal, and the fiqh more refers to the how. How do I worship? What approach is there that I can take to worship? And as you all know, there are we're now down to the four madhahib, namely so the madhab Shafi'iyya, madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahumullah, and the madhab of Ibn Hanbal wa Malik radiyallahu anhum wa rahimahumullah. We delve into the fiqh, or the hows and the worship of Allah Jalla Jalla on this program and on this course bi'idhnillah, through the way of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, and I had chosen a text not very difficult that we'd sort of be going through, making choices rather, and extracting some excerpts from, and that is the Nailur Raja Bisharh Safinatun Najah, that is of Imam al-Shatibi, Imam of the Shafi'i madhab, and it's actually a matan that was written by his sheikh, and from then onwards he had taken that and written a sharh called Nailur Raja. Nailur Raja of the book called Safinatun Najah. Safinatun Najah in English then meaning the ship of guidance, or the ship of salvation. So without further ado, and without sort of too much on the authors of the books and the books themselves and so on, we jump straight into the text and straight into what the madhab has to say. That, as always, in fiqh and jurisprudence really, or as we've mentioned, the hows to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of the imams and so on and so forth, as we all know. Before we get into the technicality, the greater ibadah of salah and so on, of course the wudu and tahara being prerequisites of that become the matters of primary importance. So we begin with the Kitab al-Tahara, and obviously that's those are the prerequisites leading up to the main salat and the different kind of salat, the salat al-Jum'ah and so on and so forth. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qala al-Musannif rahimahullah. He speaks firstly about the bulugh being thalatha. Al-bulugh thalatha. Alamatul bulugh thalatha. Bulugh refers to that being reaching the age of puberty, either in a male or female, and thus قال المصنف بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم علامات البلوغ ثلاث. الأول تمام 15 سنة في الذكر والأنثى، والثاني الاحتلام في الذكر والأنثى ل9 سنين، الثالث والحيض في الأنثى ل9 سنين. And so the author had said here in the book, clarifying that the signs of bulugh, the signs of puberty, and the isharas, really what points to puberty, affirms people having attained puberty rather, are of three, right? He mentions three in specific, and that he begins with تمام 15 سنة في الذكر والأنثى, and that means a تمام 15 سنة means the attaining or the completion of 15 years of age. 15 years of age, you'll notice that this is the absolute maximum of age that the boy or the girl might have reached. This being tahdidan, really speaking. They've said tahdidan meaning that it must be very, very specific on that same day, and some scholars go on to say that it must be on the same hour or the same minute. That is the moment that the boy or the girl has turned 15 years of age, on that day, alternatively on that hour, if they know the hour on which the time of birth was on the date of birth, at that hour or at that minute in specific is when the boy or the girl has attained the age, has made tamam of 15 sanatan, has made a completion of a full 15 years of age. Notice also that we said that this is specifically on the day. There is no flexibility amongst the scholars. There is no flexibility of this. It has to be on that day, and some go on to say on that hour, and more specifically on that minute in specific. Also important to note is that this is 15 lunar years and not 15 years on in terms of the solar calendar. On the second, of course, this applies to both male and female. Both will reach that age, bi'idhnillah. The second that the Musannif and the author writes here is وَالْإِحْتِلَامُ الذَّكَرِ وَالْأُنْثَى لِتِسْعِ سِنِينَ. On to both male and female. Al-ihtilam coming from hulm or hulum, referring to a dream that may be experienced by either the boy or the girl, which signifies puberty, and thus qualifies them to now be adult or having reached the age of puberty. It's obviously known or referred to as a wet dream, and obviously experienced by either a male or a female. The second here being the dream. The third, unlike the first condition, on a basis of taqriban and not tahdidan, and we'll get that in just a moment. The third indicator that a child has become has an adult and has reached the age of puberty is only applicable to a girl, and that is وَالْحَيْضُ فِي الْأُنْثَى لِتِسْعِ سِنِينَ, and that is that a girl has reached the puberty by means of having experienced her menstrual cycle, which is called in Arabic al-hayd. That is her menstrual cycles, or her period of purification. The second and the third, there's, like we said, there's three, so we'll just run through them again just to sort of refresh and make repetition of them. Also run through them sort of in the Arabic, and why I'd like to do that is so that we can familiarize ourselves with these terms, this terminology and so on. That will help us with a greater understanding and familiarity of these items, inshallah. So alamatul bulugh, the three signs of having reached puberty are three. The first is تمام 15 سنة في الذكر والأنثى, that is reaching 15 years of age on terms of the lunar calendar, and that is obviously in both male as well as female. The second one is الاحتلام في الذكر والأنثى لتسع سنين, that is having experienced a dream, or better known as a wet dream, at 9 years of age and upwards. So technically speaking, 9 years of age up to the age of 15, had they not experienced a dream or a wet dream, but by the time they had reached 15 years old, they would automatically have reached puberty by way of having completed 15 lunar years of age, and not necessarily depending, in a sense, on having experienced the dream. The other and the last of the three is have reached the age of puberty and that is only specific to a girl having experienced her menstrual cycles or her period. And number one is specific to the day, the hour, or the minute on which has turned 15 years of age. And number two and number three, the dream or the hulum ihtilam. And number three, number three is the haid experienced by the girl or menstrual cycle or period. This is sinin. This is 9 years taqriban, not specific to day. However, play with regards to the day which he or she has turned 9 years of age. Mathalan, for example, that's that if a girl had to turn 9 years old on a specific little bit of leverage, and they give it a little bit of rope in which if she experiences her haid or her cycle up to about 16 days before the birthday of her ninth year of age, turning 9 years of age, is accepted as haid. Should it have occurred before 15 days before her turning of 9 years old, or for the boy having experienced in 15 days, which is under the 16 of his ninth birthday, then it still qualifies as him or her having experienced either a dream or her experience. Her menstrual cycle confirms that under conditions of the of experiencing the menstrual cycle is that she's now officially reached the age of puberty, as well as that with regards to the dream, the boy or the girl has reached that age of puberty, and have if they haven't received if they haven't experienced rather the dream, or she hasn't experienced the haid up to the age of 15 years old. As soon as they reach the age of 15 years old, that being again the lunar years, they are confirmed of having attained the age of puberty and reached the age of puberty. Wallahu wa rasuluhu a'lam. And while we go on with this, it might seem a bit sort of weird, if you think why would we sort of be concerned about this and so on and so forth, because obviously there are many various factors with regards to my girl has sort of began to develop certain shapes on her body and so on and so forth. This is what the scholars have put forth for us to sort of ensure, because ultimately, should you be taking on the role of an imam, or taking on the role of ensuring that people are within the boundaries of halal and haram, and not playing around in the gray areas, and not having fallen out of the bound what is halal and haram, thus them to the musalla and making sure that they make salah and so on. We all know that from the age of puberty, salah is fully and compulsory for our children and for our youth. Thus, knowing the boundary when and when not they might have or have not attained puberty, we know obviously how to apply ourselves and how to apply them and ensure that not a single salah is missed. For we all know that any single salah missed is from amongst the major and greater sins. Wallahu wa rasuluhu a'lam. Moving on from the surety of the ages of the children and so on and so forth having attained puberty, we move over to the wudu. Of course, there are one or two items that I'm skipping from the book. I think it's imperative that we obviously make very important selections and extractions from the book and just stick to those so that we remain in key. We move over to the furudul wudu, in which the musannif, the author of the book, says furudul wudu sitta. Of course, we know that they are 6. الأول النية، الثاني غسل الوجه، الثالث غسل اليدين مع المرفقين. رابع at number 4 is مسح شيء من الرأس. خامس number 5 غسل الرجلين مع الكعب. السادس being الترتيب. So the furud of wudu, of course, they are the sunnah of wudu, they are the musab of wudu and so on, and the karaha, the things that are makruh and so on in the wudu, like in focusing on the most primary basics right now, know that the wudu are six in total. All right, starting with an-niyya. An-niyya being your intent, as we know, kama qala Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in everything, is that an-niyya is the primary base of every single thing and almost every single ibadah. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is obviously narrated by Shaykhain and others, namely Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, rahimahumullah. A'malu bin niyyah wa innama likulli imri'in ma nawa, and so on and so forth, saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, innamal a'malu bin niyyah. Of course, all of action is judged on, and based on, and thus recompensed on what was in the first place. First, of course, then is the niyyah of wudu. All right, being the niyyah, that is the first compulsory act of the wudu. We go into detail just now on the niyyah and every single part thereafter. I just needed to confirm that I hadn't on the on what the author had said. طيب اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله. الأول النية. النية is that which needs to be done at a certain time, and there's a certain place for it, and there are certain yeses and nos and advisable act with regards. That is the first of the wudu. النية أولا needs to be done at أول العبادات. أول العبادات is first and very first point of the beginning of the core of every ibadah. And notice that there are sunan al-wudu, as an example. There are sunan al-wudu, which is the washing of the hands and the using of siwak and the tasmiyah, reciting the basmala and so on and so forth. Like, notice that in the madhab, Imam Shafi'i had said that the awwalul ibadat, meaning the first point of entry of the faraid of the wudu and of every other that is, and that specifically being now, as and when you're making the wudu, obviously, as we know, the first part of the wudu, apart from the niyyah itself, is the washing of the face, ghuslul wajh. The first fard is the niyyah, and then is the ghuslul wajh. Lakin, when do we make the niyyah? The niyyah in the Shafi'i madhab is to be done at awwalul ibadat. Awwalul ibadat is not just at the washing of the face. The niyyah is to be done at the washing of the first part of the face. Of the first part of that fard is to be done at the beginning of the wash of the face. Mathalan, an example is that the niyyah needs to be made at the beginning. If you had to be washing from the top all the way to the bottom of the face, the niyyah needs to be made here at the beginning here, and not down here. If you were to be washing your face sort of from the bottom up, the niyyah needs to be made as your hands go in the water like this, and not there. So if you're starting from the top again, niyyah begins here, nawaitu, and so on. If you're starting from bottom or a different part, nawaitu, and so on. Awwalu juz'in min al-wajh, at the beginning of the face. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. So what is this niyyah? That is obviously at the first part of all of the ibadat, and they said that talaffudu biha, meaning articulating the niyyah in specific, articulating it with your lips and your is sunnah. The niyyah itself is fard, but is only sunnah to niyyah with your lips. That is, otherwise makanuha or mahalla, which the niyyah, the place, the true place of the niyyah is that. And we go back to the hadith that we mentioned of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that innamal a'malu bin niyyat, could have done something and looks a certain way outwards, but the jaza and the only of what your niyyah was in your heart. So it's imperative to note that our hearts need to a pure and sincere niyyah when doing any of the ibadat, be it the wudu or the salah or anything else. Moving on to the second fard of the six, it's the second of the six of the wudu, is the ghuslul wajh. Alright, so you basically make your niyyah at the first juz of washing the face, and then you continue washing the face, the ghuslul wajh, which is obviously the second fard of the six of wudu. So, what was the wajh defined as, and was the wajh known as to the scholars? And they obviously had to define this because we find a lot of people might fall short somewhat in what in total the face comprises of. We often find that people make the most common error of having the part behind the sideburn, the part behind and between the sideburn and the ear, not realizing or not knowing that that is actually a part of the face. So what does the face entails? The beginning of the hair on the top of the head, all right, and that is in most down to what they call al-lihyain in English, that the chin area. And if you look at it ardan, that being from sort of horizontally, is being from one ear to the other ear. Please, people, note and realize that horizontally it's from one ear, the beginning of one ear, to the beginning of the other side, and not from sideburn to sideburn. All right, covering all of this. This is ghuslul wajh and not mashul wajh. Very important to note. Ghusl and the mash is two very different things. The ghusl is referred to in Arabic as sayalanul ma, running of water. The running of water versus just the touching with moisture. Mash sort of refers to applying moisture to any of the next later on 2 steps from now, that we make mash just the touching and releasing of moisture on, versus ghuslul wajh, in other words, running of water, again covering from the first hairline on top, going down to al-lihyain, which is the chin, and from to the other side, the other ear. This entire area is the wajh, ghuslul wajh, completely. So what happens then, obviously, in a lot of sometimes people have a beard and others don't have a beard, all right, and some have a thick beard and some don't have a thick beard, and some people have hair on some parts of the face and some people have hair on other parts of the face, and thus the scholars separated the beard into two, and that is a lihya kathif is khafif, which is a thinner, lighter, and maybe a little bit of a shorter beard, and so on. So a thick beard is defined, and how that's sort of how do we say what specifies or clarifies rather what a thick beard is, and between what a thick beard is versus a thin beard is ma la basharatuhu bi majlisin mukhalaf, and that is that had you been sitting with a person in for general conversation with them, on average a meter to a meter and a half apart, and should you be sitting a meter and a half, be it on the floor in the masjid or table or across a table, should you be able to see the skin of that person through the beard, that clarifies to you that that person now has a beard that is khafif instead of kathif. If you look at the person that you are speaking to and you're not able to see the skin and the color of his skin through the beard, that is a beard kathif. So if you can see through and you see the skin, the beard is khafi, meaning it's a lighter beard, or it's a milder beard. And if you are not able to see the skin of the person through the beard, that is thick. And that why we need to mention this and why we need to focus so much on this is that the scholars have mentioned that the beard, the thief, does not require water to be running through the beard, reaching all of the skin at the bottom, versus a shorter beard, which is the beard that is khafif. You need to run to the bottom of that beard and touch and make very wet all of the skin under that beard. So, to refresh, is a thick beard on which water just needs to be run over the top, and that's only if you're sitting in a conversation with a person and you are unable to see the skin of that person. That person is allowed to just run water over the beard and does not by necessity have to make the water run to the bottom of the beard, thus wetting the skin. Versus khaf, obviously the aks, which is obviously the opposite of that. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Obviously the different areas of hair are many and so on. They are actually, according to the Arabs, there are about 20 different types of hair on various face, which obviously we are not concerned with right now. So, what comes in at thalath? So, the first was an-niyah of the six furud of wudu was an-niyah. The second was ghuslul wajh, and we know ghuslul wajh obviously covers all of the face from the top first line to the bottom of the chin, ear to ear, not sideburn to sideburn. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Number 3 is ghuslul yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn, and as was which is the washing of the hands up to and including the elbows. Up to and including the elbows, meaning you go a little bit past the actual elbow. So then what happens there is a lot of the time the kind of mistake made, Madhab Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i, is people begin the yadain at the wrist, not realizing that the yad actually begins from ru'usul asabi', beginning at the top of the fingers. So what happens? The fard number 3 of the 6 of the wudu is to begin at the top of the fingers from ru'usul asabi' going down. Ghaslul yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn. The elbow is here, and thus you need to go a little bit past to upper body in order to ensure sal versus mas. As we've mentioned, the mas is just applying moist. Ghaslul yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn, that being washing from the very top of fingers, go all the way down to the elbow and back, and ensuring all of that is covered by running water versus just a touch of moisture. Number 3 was pretty simple, and that's about it for now, really. Just ensure that all areas are covered with water and all areas have received wetting of the entire limbs. And as we mentioned, and I'll mention again, just so it comes from the top of the fingers, not forgetting that should there be any sort of dirt or dust, oil or anything of the sort, or any sort of grease or anything under the nails, the water needs to reach the bottom and touch the skin by the nails as much as possible, and thus should there be any debris or any oil or any grease that will sort of restrict water from reaching that skin, it is then now it necessitates of nails and the complete cleaning of that area. Water does reach the bottom of the skin there and go a little bit under the nails in order that that fard of the wudu can be complete. Wallahu. So Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala. The fourth of the six is mashu shay'in ar-ras, and here this is mash. This is just the applying of moisture versus the running of water. So mashu shay'in min ar-ras. So if the word began here at the first hairline, we obviously know the red is the head that continues down. So it's not specific to the entire head, but mashu shay'in min ar-ras, meaning the moistening of any part of the head. So technically speaking, should I have some water in my bowl or in my canister or whatever it is, all that needs to happen, technically speaking, is that I just need to touch some water and do that, and that would be accepted. It's good. Why? Applying the moisture to the top of the head. Mashu shay. Applying just moisture to any part of the ras. Shay min al-ras. Anything or any part of the head that is. Allahu ta'ala a'lam. Moving on to where the next part is, and that is number 5, of course. 5 out of the 6, 5 of the 6, which is غسل الرجلين مع الكعبين. غسل الرجلين مع الكعبين. Ghusl, which is the washing, versus the mere applying of water to the feet, and the feet up to and including the ankles. So it's obviously advisable to go a little bit past the ankles. That is غسل الرجلين مع الكعبين. Obviously making sure and ensuring that all of each of the feet have received complete washing, not having left out any part that sort of might tend to remain dry or whatever it is. These scholars have also gone ahead to mention that a lot of people experience cracks and so on and dry skin in their feet, specifically on the ankle in a lot of cases. And should that be so, Madhab Imam Shafi'i states that you need to be ensuring that these cracks and reaches the very bottom of that. And as was with, should there be any sort of grease or dust or anything of the sort that now necessitates cleaning of the cracks on the heels or else on the feet, such that water can make wusul, and the wusul, that is the reaching of the most parts of that limb. And thus that's it's basically as simple as that. The the sixth is basically a sum of all the others, and that is tartib, that being done in the correct order. Notice this is the sixth and the last fard. It's number 6 out of 6 fard, but very, very important. Madhab Imam Shafi'i is that the wudu is not complete, and all of the fara'id of the wudu have not been, should this not be in the order that we have mentioned. So al-awwal, number 1 of 6 was the niyyah. We know, we just to recap quickly, number 1 of the 6, the niyyah. Number 2, ghusl al-wajh. Number 3 was ghusl al-yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn, ras. Number 5 was ghusl al-rijlayn ma'al ka'bayn, and number 6 was at-tartib. The number 1 of the 6, the niyyah, that it was a sunnah to articulate it, but the true place of the niyyah, asl and the foundation and the root of the niyyah is the heart. So making it in the heart with it is acceptable, though it is just sunnah to mention it. The niyyah will be done at the first point of any of the ibadah you are going to do with what we've spoken about today is the wudu. So the niyyah to be done at the awwal part of the of washing of the face, the wudu, and that is the awwal, the first part. The face might have ajza, might have a half split into many other sections, but juz min al wajh, and that is your niyyah needs to be made at the very first landing of the water from your hands onto the face. That's the point at which the niyyah, it's from ear to ear, not sideburn to sideburn, from the top first line of E down to the bottom of the chin, and it needs to cover the entire area. Ghusl means washing of the face. A side note as well is that should you be waking up in the morning, whatever time it is, should there be the awsakh, and that is normally the stuff that comes out of the eyes and that's stuck on the face in the morning, that normally restricts water from reaching the very bottom of the skin at the eyes, and this needs to be cleared out, as well as with the nails and the cracked heels and maybe the toenails and so on as well. It restricts the water from reaching all of the skin, and thus that needs to be cleared out before having completed the ghusl of the face. Number 3 was the also before moving over to number 3, don't forget that the brothers with beards and that don't have beards and that have shorter beards, beard that is kathif, which is thick, is what, if you're sitting 1 meter to 1.5 meters away from him, you are unable to see the skin or the color of the skin. The brother with the khafif or the lighter beard is that you are able to see the skin. The one with the lighter beard needs to ensure that the water goes through the beard all the way to the bottom and wets the skin completely all the way through the face, whereas the brother with the beard that is thick or kathif just needs to all of the skin and on the face except the beard, just ensuring that the top of the beard is nicely wet. Number 3 was ghuslul yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn, and that is from the top of the finger all the way down and but past the elbows, washing. Ghuslul yadayn ma'al mirfaqayn. Number was mashu shay min ar-ras, just apply moisture to any part of the head is good enough, even though most suggest that it goes there. And I know Madhabi Abu Hanifa had suggested that it's either a quarter or you can go all the way and so on and so forth. Like in Azishan, technically speaking, it's just a mashu shay min ar-ras, in which you can just tap a little bit of water and just touch that, and that is having had applied the required moisture to the head. Thereafter is the rijlain ma'al ka'bayn, that is obviously quite simple and straightforward, the washing of the feet up to and including, more advisably, that you go a little bit past the ankles just to be sure. And number 6 out of 6 is that it's done in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in that order, because the Shafi'i madhab also mentions that it needs to be in the order that the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had put it in the Quran. And that obviously brings us to the end of today's session. I didn't expect to spend the whole session on the wudu only, like it's very important to ensure that we are bringing tartib, and we are bringing sure application to our steps to the greater ibadat, and this the salah and so on and so forth. And we all know that if wudu, for example, and tahara is a prerequisite for the salah, then the wudu and so on obviously becomes another wajib and an fard in total, and it in itself becomes an ibadah. And thus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and assist us and teach us and grant us understanding, make beautiful and make all of the ibadat beautiful, and make us leaders in our homes and out of our homes and in our communities and outside of our own communities, cross communities and so on, and teach us how to perform the acts of worship for him in a very beautiful way that he will like, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah Allahu Jamilun wa yuhibbul Jamal, sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful and He loves beauty. And we know that ibadah, when performed correctly and appropriately, is beautiful, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admires that beauty. And you yourselves and all of ourselves, bi'idhnillah, will experience that kind of beauty and will be able to, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, complete and put our ibadah, only receiving greater. And this is our today. Shukran wa barakallah fikum for tuning in. I hope in Allah Jalla Jalaluhu that it was beneficial and that we can take this much further. And I only ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us more beautiful slaves for Him, that we may be beautiful slaves for Him Jalla Jalaluhu. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Fassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.